moving on to one of the final videos that we'll be doing on this wonderful book, The Phase, that we've been slowly working our way through the past several months. Still in chapter 12. In this video, we'll be talking about some of the many techniques that he has for entering into the state. Like, he has 47 different techniques written down in here. We're definitely not going over all 47 of them. We'll do roughly half. And the way I chose the ones to cover, it was not at all ranked on like best or worst or anything like that. I was just really trying to go over these 47 and pick the ones that I don't think we already covered. Now, I definitely did not go back through all my old videos to see which ones I put in there and which ones I didn't. So I just kind of went off of memory here, and if the name didn't sound or the technique didn't sound familiar to me, I highlighted it. And so that's what we'll be going through. So first up, we have one that's called the technique of creating vision. The phaser tries to see their actual surroundings without opening their eyes. So, you're lying in bed, you try to, picture or see your bedroom. 2, the swing set technique. The phaser tries to feel that he is riding a swing set or that his body itself is rocking with the same range of motion. The primary goal is to achieve the realistic sensation of swinging and try to make 360-degree revolutions. Number 3, techniques of imagining sounds. The phaser tries to hear some specific sound inside his head, someone's voice, familiar music, and the sound of one's own name being called, which tends to work best, he points out. If such sounds arise, then the practitioner tries to make it as loud as possible. So this is one I kind of just stumble into sometimes on accident, like when I'm really tired trying to fall asleep and I'm getting close to this, liminal hypnagogic stage 1 of sleep area. Then I hear sounds pretty often, actually. But like anything outside of me being like super duper sleep deprived, then my liminal hypnagogic state tends to be pretty much silent. The next one is called the cell phone technique. The phaser tries to feel some object in his hand, like a cell phone, for example, but it could be anything. Meanwhile, one should try to achieve realistic sensations in full detail. Next up, technique of straining the body but not the muscles. Like straining the brain, which he brings up a lot throughout this book. Like straining the brain, but with the whole body. One tries to strain the body, but not the physical muscles. This causes internal tension, noise, and vibrations, which can eventually lead to the phase. The next one's called the wind technique. The phaser imagines that his body is in a stream of strong wind and tries to feel how the air flows around either his entire body or just part of it. And this is a bit off topic, but it reminds me of my fan meditation technique that I just kind of stumbled into and made up one day, where, just to use as your object of attention, I'll have a fan, typically like blowing on my legs or something, and I'll use that physical sensation of the wind hitting my legs as my object of attention for my meditation. And that tends to work pretty good if your mind's really loud and noisy, like early on in the meditation, as a way just to kind of quiet things down. Next up, we have the technique of eye movement. The phaser makes abrupt left to right or up and down eye movements. The eyes are kept closed the whole time. When properly performing the technique, vibrations and possibly separation will occur. So something I'll do with my eye movements is when I'm getting close to like stage 1 of sleep area, I'll kind of rotate them or spin them, and that's a good way to kind of introduce the sensation of movement into that stage. So that's one I like to play with. Next up, the forehead dot technique. Without opening his eyes, the phaser directs his gaze towards a dot on the center of his forehead. This is not to be a forced or excessively aggressive movement. This will bring the eyes into... this is not meant to be. I had that right. This will bring the eyes into a position they naturally take during deep sleep, which may lead to a reflexive entrance into the phase or facilitate the performance of other techniques. Next up, the technique of breathing. The phaser focuses his attention on the process of breathing and all of its aspects, the expansion and contraction of the chest cavity, the lungs filling with air, and the passage of air through the mouth and throat. A fluid transition into the phase may occur or vibrations may arise. Next up is called the tactile irritation technique. The practitioner loosely ties his ankles or wrists with a cord and puts on a sleeping mask. The sensations created by these foreign objects can remind the practitioner to perform the right actions either upon awakening or immediately after a lapse in consciousness. Next up is a technique called the technique of physiological discomfort. The practitioner eats little throughout the day or drinks little water while eating lots of salty things. Sounds a little dangerous. Conversely, the practitioner might drink too much water over the course of the day before making an attempt to enter the phase. The resulting physiological discomfort will often awaken the practitioner, induce consciousness while dreaming, or keep him from falling into a deep sleep when performing direct techniques. Next up, the technique of motivation. In order to have a phase entrance occur spontaneously, or get techniques work better, or get techniques to work better, must be what it's supposed to say. The practitioner creates a most interesting and important plan of action for the phase that he wants to carry out no matter what. What? Let me try that again. In order to have a phase entrance occur spontaneously or get techniques work better, or get techniques to work better, the practitioner creates a most interesting and important plan of action. I'm going to get rid of that A, plan of action. Plan of action for the phase that he wants to carry out no matter what. That must be some, like throughout this book I found several typos and stuff in there. Must be with the whole translation thing. Next up, technique of fear. The phaser tries to recall something as scary, awful, and graveyard-like as possible and imagine it right next to him. It sounds like a fun one. This is meant to evoke pure terror and horror, which will elevate to a phasic state at the right moment. The main deficiency of the technique is that fear can linger on into the phase. That's what I was thinking. And the practitioner might subsequently try to get out of the state. Okay, next up. Technique of counting. In order to enter the phase, the practitioner counts down from 100 to 1. Depending on the phase entrant method to follow, he should try either to keep his attention focused on counting or conversely try to achieve lapses in consciousness. I have had success with that one before in the past. The practitioner moves his attention, the name of it, technique of dotting. The practitioner moves his attention to points on the skin atop the largest joints of the body or moves his awareness to inside the joints themselves. Sounds interesting. You should pause at each point for several seconds or breaths, trying to feel them as distinctly as you can. Next up is called the technique of sensory motor visualization technique, in parentheses, deepening. The phaser should try to imagine as fixedly and actively as possible that he has already separated from his stencil and is employing a technique for deepening the phase, including the intensification of every sensation possible. You should imagine that he is walking inside a room, scrutinizing everything from a close range, touching something, and so on. That is, he should immediately deepen the phase without using techniques to create the state or separate. Next one, which is called the rope technique. And I've heard this one a lot, like in just other places, just kind of being around this kind of stuff. But this is the first time I think he actually mentioned it in this book that I recall, at least. The phaser imagines that a rope is dangling above him and that he is climbing up it. Meanwhile, one should try to feel one's own arm movements, the touch of the rope, and the sensation of height. Visualization of the process may occasionally be added in. The next one, the alien abduction technique. The practitioner imagines that aliens have invaded his bedroom and are grabbing his ankles and pulling him out of his physical body. Alternatively, he imagines that he is being pulled out by a beam emanating from a spaceship. The next one, the sex technique, sounds interesting. The practitioner tries to feel the intimate sensations of the copulative? I'm not sure if I know exactly what that word means, but I can guess, of the copulative act in as much detail as possible. Next up, toothbrush technique. The practitioner tries to feel that he is brushing his teeth. He tries to feel the movement of his hand, the sensation of the brush in his mouth, and the taste of toothpaste. He can also try to add in sensations by imagining himself standing in front of a mirror in a bathroom. Next up, the whispering pillow technique. Lying with his ear to his pillow, the practitioner tries to hear sounds, melodies, and voices coming from it. Sounds interesting again. He can try to hear specific sounds or simply passively listen to what's there. Next one, the hyperventilation technique. During an attempt upon awakening, the practitioner takes several dozen quick and deep breaths, upon which separation may work, or the practitioner may be thrown into the phase. For techniques without prior sleep, hyperventilating is much less effective and can take anywhere from 10 to 30 minutes. Next up, dream memory development technique. The practitioner recalls all of his latest dreams both in the morning and in the evening. For more solid results, one should keep a dream journal and try to enter as many dream episodes into it as possible. The more dreams that the practitioner remembers, the more vivid future ones will become, and the more frequently he will become conscious during them. And that one I've definitely seen work in my own personal practice as well. And then the last one, the highest universal technique. Great name. A practitioner well acquainted with the phase will try not to use techniques to create the necessary state. He will attempt to obtain it immediately. All right. This is similar to intense intention to experience the phase, coupled with focused recollection of the sensations associated with it. This technique is only suitable for practitioners who have formidable experience. Yeah, that one sounds kind of complicated. I also didn't totally get it when I read it, but nonetheless, that was a lot to read for my dyslexic brain over here. So we'll wrap it up there. And in the next video, I'll kind of share my thoughts on the book in general. And then I won't totally end my, end the videos on the phase. I do plan on digging into some of Michael's work that he has online and his videos and stuff. And I'll probably do, a few more videos based off of that. But with that said, that'll wrap it up. Until the next video, keep your phase practice legit.